Today's podcast is sponsored by Healthy Cell. Reach your potential. Get 20% off your first order with code Carter, that's CARTER, at healthycell.com/Carter. Today, I've got Arizona Attorney General Mark Brnovich, and he joins me to discuss the big win in court, guys. I've been at the border all week, and I got to tell you, there is nothing more important right now than the battle our good attorney generals like Attorney General Mark Brnovich, Ken Paxton, and others are having against the Biden administration over Title 42. We are going to discuss that with him, go into detail with him as to how it happened, what needs to be done now, what we could do to put the pressure on the Biden administration so that they stop this senseless, very dangerous, chaotic border situation that has put so many lives at risk and is endangering our nation right now. We'll also discuss his campaign, Brnovich's campaign for the U.S. Senate. How exciting is that? We need good people in the Senate, folks. We need the Senate back. That's what we need. We need the right people in the Senate to make the right decisions and people who know what they're doing. Plus, Homeland Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas testifies on Capitol Hill and basically was described by multiple people on the phone with me during his testimony as a nincompoop. They wanted him out. They want that guy removed. They think he's a big fat liar, quote unquote, and many, many more expletives that I cannot and will not say right now on the show. I may say them later, but I'm just not going to say them right now. Please follow and subscribe. I want you to get all your links at saracarter.com. That means you can find all my social media links there. And wow, how exciting, huh? We've got Elon Musk in the fight of his life right now with Twitter, taking over Twitter with the left, really calling out these extremists. Look, I don't know what's going on in our country, but this is not your father's old Democratic Party. This is not our grandfather's old Democratic Party. It certainly somewhere lies in the fact of the old Stalinistic or maybe China's Communist Party. I don't know what is happening here, but the left has completely lost their minds. And we're going to be talking about that. And by the way, what about this new Biden push? And we're going to go into details to establish a bureau basically of disinformation at the Department of Homeland Security. Guys, this is 1984 Orwellian scary stuff. And we cannot afford to have that in our government. We have enough crazy bureaucrats right now seizing power. We don't need to have another department that is potentially going to harm our country and our nation and our Constitution. Like I said, please follow and subscribe. Get all the links at saracarter.com. And folks, while you are there, I want you to sign up for our email list. This way, you will not be shadow banned. Before I get to Attorney General Brnovich and everything else that's going on in our country, the insanity of the Biden administration, I want to talk to you a little bit about freedom and why there are certain sponsors for this show that I absolutely believe in and that I believe you will benefit from, not just because it's a sponsor for my show, not just because it benefits my show, because I truly believe that AMAC, the Association of Mature American Citizens, is actually there to protect you and to protect me and to protect our rights because they fight the good fight up on Capitol Hill. They are not afraid to challenge the government on reckless government spending. They're not afraid to do that. They believe in securing our border. And I'm going to tell you, I'm down there every week, guys. You know this. If you listen to my podcast regularly, a lot of times I do the podcast from the border. And I can't begin to tell you how dangerous and how frightened I am of the future of our country if we don't get our border security back. They also believe in supporting our military and respecting our veterans, like my wonderful husband, Marty, who gave so much for his country and continues to do so. And they believe in standing for the flag and kneeling before God. By joining AMAC, you are taking the very first steps to saving the America you love. AMAC offers an alternative to just about every benefit that other group offers. But guess what? Without any liberal agenda. I stand with AMAC. I hope that you will too. I encourage you to join today. Let's do it, folks. Let's do it. November can't come fast enough. 2024 can't come fast enough, but together we can make a difference. Go to amac.us/Carter. That's amac.us/Carter. The benefits of membership are great, but guess what? The cause is even greater. Join today at amac.us/Carter. I'm going to open it up right away with what I found to be the most unbelievable statement to come out of a bureaucrat's big mouth in a long time. I think it stands side by side along James Clapper's statement that they were never the DNI, the Director of National Intelligence, the NSA was never spying on American citizens. Remember when he said that before Congress? It was like the biggest lie ever because they were spying on all of us and collecting all of our data. Well, DHS Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas actually said that he believes the government has effectively managed the border crisis, and he knows this is a lie. Listen to this.
We have effectively managed an unprecedented number of non-citizens seeking to enter the United States.
You all know this is a lie. I mean, he should be brought up on charges because he was lying before Congress and lying before the American people. They just lie. They just lie like it's so easy. They swallow it like butter. That's what a friend of mine used to say. Swallows the lie like butter. It's smooth and easy for them to lie. They can't help themselves. They really live in a glass bubble and believe that you and I are idiots, believe that no one's ever going to hear from the people that are really being affected by the border crisis, which is every single one of us. And they just continue to lie. This is the reason why Attorney General Brnovich and others are fighting up on Capitol Hill at the Supreme Court against the Biden administration. Look, the Biden administration, the president's only job, even right now, if he has dementia, there's a ton of people around him. So they know what the job of a president is supposed to be, even if the president doesn't. His only job at the executive branch truly is to protect the American people, to ensure our national security. That is what is required of him. That is what is required of him. And they are not doing that. That border is wide open. There are people coming from every part of the world pouring into our country, and they are not being properly vetted. We know for a fact that over 40, there was a number 42, terrorists or people connected to terrorist organizations had been apprehended by our federal law enforcement. But guys, that's only what's been apprehended. There's millions of people. Last year, nearly 2 million. This year, it's over 1 million in the first 6 months. Some people are estimating 3 million people will be coming into this nation across the southern border this year because the Biden administration has made it that way, because they actually believe and push a policy that is requiring the disruption of the border to allow people in illegally. Think about all the people that have applied legally overseas. Imagine what they are going through. They probably feel like idiots. Like, oh my gosh, there are people coming into America from nations that are completely broken, where we can't even do background checks because they don't even have a functioning government. And I'm sitting here waiting in Belgium or in Kenya or in Mexico or Nicaragua or Guatemala. I'm sitting here waiting patiently for my paperwork to go through, to do things the right way, because I believe in America. I believe in law and order. I believe in justice, because in their nations, folks, the majority of their countries, they do not have that. The majority of people around the world live under a fist of power and fear and horror. They do. We are blessed, and we are only blessed because we have a government that believes in the people, that believes in freedom, that believes in law and order. And it will not last for long if the Biden administration gets its way. And if it's crazy bureau, which I'm going to be talking about later on in the show, if that crazy bureau of disinformation gets its way, we're talking Orwellian memory holes here. We're talking people that are going to be deciding, people that are politically, ideologically bent, deciding whether or not there's disinformation out there and how they're going to handle it. That's crazy, folks. I want you to listen to this clip, though. I'm going to go back to Alejandro Mayorkas because I had spoken to so many folks, by the way, former senior officials with the Trump administration. I was on the phone with them this morning. I've spoken to Border Patrol agents. I've spoken to Immigration and Customs Enforcement officers. All of this during the time Alejandro Mayorkas is lying through his teeth about what is happening at our border. Listen to this next clip.
It is our responsibility to maintain operational control of the border. That is what our personnel are dedicated to doing. That is what the personnel of throughout the department and I, as the secretary, are dedicated to doing, and we will not lose operational control of the border.
Again, that's the full clip. He is saying that, his agents are working to not lose full operational control of the border. Do you want me to tell you what's happening at the border? They are just basically there for theater, and the guys know it, and they're frustrated. They're angry and frustrated, and the gals and guys that are working on the front lines every single day. And by the way, we lost a life. Let's not forget Specialist Bishop Evans, who gave his life jumping into that Rio Grande, and the river was rushing underneath. It might have looked still on top. He jumped in to save two people's lives, a woman and a man, who are now being held in federal custody. That 22-year-old hero who will never see his family again because he jumped in to save the lives of those two, did save their lives, and instead lost his own. And later we find out that the two people that he saved, he didn't ask, he just wanted to save a life. That's the kind of people we have on the border, right? He just wanted to save a life. Later, we find out those two were connected to a drug ring. They were moving narcotics into the United States. And now there is a full-fledged investigation by the Texas Rangers into that incident because we really don't have all the details. We know that he jumped in to save their lives. We know that those two survived, but we really don't know what happened in the water, right? Was there a struggle? Did he help them? Did they drown him? Did he help them get out and then he drowned? There's a lot of details here. And by the way, they were moving narcotics into the country. So those are extenuating circumstances. They're right now being held in federal custody. But there are people out there, Secretary Mayorkas, who are willing and who have given their lives for our nation because our border is literally our first line of defense on the national level, on the local level, right on the ground level. What makes Alejandro Mayorkas believe, or anyone in the Biden administration with any common sense or decency at all, that there won't be terrorists coming across that border? They know it. They know it. Not only are there people that are connected to terrorist organizations coming across that border, we have people connected to enemy states like Iran and other places coming across that border, could be utilizing that border for very nefarious purposes. We have children being trafficked and women being trafficked along that border, being sold into slavery here in the United States. And by the way, just in case the Biden administration missed the memo, over 100,000 people have lost their lives due to fentanyl and heroin overdoses in our country. And that doesn't even include the people who have been brain damaged and who are going to spend the rest of their lives needing medical care. What do you think that costs a society? I want you to listen to this clip. It just blew my mind. This is Mayorkas telling Andy Biggs that there should be a pathway to citizenship for illegals. And by the way, Congressman Biggs nails him on this. He does a phenomenal job at this. Listen to this.
Will you commit to oppose any form of amnesty or modification of legal status of those who are in this country illegally who have entered during your tenure?
Only Congress can provide legal status through the laws. We administer the laws.
Would you oppose that? We're not talking about who passes laws or not. We're just talking about your philosophy as the DHS Secretary. Would you support amnesty or modification of legal status?
Congressman, I fully support and have for many years legislative reform that once and for all fixes our broken immigration
So
system.
I'll take it that you won't make that statement now.
No, I actually will if you would allow me. And
We got just a few seconds, so speed it up, please.
and that involves a path to citizenship for those who have been in this country for many years, who've been contributing
Very good.
to the
So
well-being of our country.
So the answer is you would support amnesty of some kind.
He gets it. He knows. Congressman Biggs knows what's going on here. We all know what's going on here. They are flooding the gates wide open because the Democrats are terrified. Their only way, because this is not our old Democratic Party. Remember that. This is a leftist socialist regime that needs to have a majority of people continually putting them into office so that they can finally implement what they want. And that is to reformat, to rechange, to break the foundation of our nation and create an entirely new system in this country. These people do not believe in you. They don't believe in you. They don't believe that you can make appropriate decisions, that you can think for yourself, that you have ambition, that you and your children can be so much more than your ancestors were, or, that you can build dreams that are incredible, that you could have a child like Elon Musk, right? Or Bill Gates or anybody. They don't believe this. Even those that actually benefited from the system itself, from our capitalist republic, from our democratic system, they have now become the fearmongers, right? They're the ones that are so afraid. They're so afraid of losing their power that they're willing to sell you out and their country out in order to obtain and retain their power. That's the kind of person that they are. That's who these people are. And you better keep your eyes wide open. You better make sure you're watching, because that's exactly what they intend to do. I want you to hear this. Mayorkas also admits that there will be more illegal immigration if Title 42 is lifted, which is exactly what the Biden administration wants. Listen.
We are mindful that there can be an increase in migratory flows encountered at our southern border should Title 42 come to an end, as the CDC has determined it needs to do by May 23rd.
18,000 a day is what the DHS suspects. I spoke with Border Patrol Chief Raul Ortiz. There's a lot of people who do not like him. They believe that the Border Patrol Chief, sold out. They believe they sold out, to the bureaucracy, to the Biden administration, that he's not holding, Biden accountable for what happened to his, men, especially the Border Patrol agents that were on horseback, and the fact that they want the Border Patrol chief to stand up to the Biden administration. And maybe that's true. But you could see it even in the Border Patrol chief's eyes down on the border, how frustrated he was. The concerns that he had, for the men and women down there that are working on that border every single day. What's going to happen when it's not just, 7,000, 6,000 people a day, but it's 11,000, 15,000, 18,000. It's going to get hot. People are going to die. People are going to fall in the river. More men and women from our federal, local, and, agencies and now are going to be caught in state as well. Think about DPS, what they're doing out there. They're going to be out there. They're going to be the first line of defense in this nation. And some of them, just like Specialist Bishop Evans, may lose their lives. Their families may not have them anymore. They will not be coming home to their families. And all because an administration is failing to do their job to protect the American people. So instead, Governor Abbott has to build up a line of defense here at the border with the hope, guys, that the defenses that have been put in place here, both state and local, as well as our federal agents who are trying to do their darndest, trying to do their best, will stop something before it occurs. We can only hope that that is going to happen. But here's the craziest thing. On top of all the madness at the border, Alejandro Mayorkas admitted before Congress that the Department of Homeland Security now has basically established a disinformation governance board. Take a listen to this, and we're going to talk about it quickly.
Our Undersecretary for policy. Rob Silvers is co-chair with our principal deputy general counsel, Jennifer Daskell, in leading a just recently constituted misinformation, disinformation governance board. So we're bringing, the goal is to bring the resources of the department together to address this threat.
This is crazy. This is complete insanity. I can't even believe this is being even addressed, that it's even happening in the United States of America. What is this, some kind of ministry of truth? The DHS is going to be policing the internet for disinformation? Guys, these are the same people that lied to all of us about everything. They lied to us about the Russia hoax. They lied to us about what they were implementing in schools. They lied to us about every little thing that you can imagine, about the elections, about everything. These are the same people that were creating like memory holes, remember, from like 1984, and just destroying information. Hunter Biden's laptop story. They said that was disinformation. In fact, over 50 intelligence officers signed on to a piece of paper that said that the Hunter Biden laptop story that was written by the New York Post and a phenomenal book by Miranda Devine was all lies. That's what they said. Until they got nincompoop in office, and now they're allowing the New York Times and, their lackeys to write stories about it and say, no, well, it was true. A little too late. And we know what you're doing. You don't care about the American people or truth. You don't care about what is needed in a republic to make it viable, to keep it alive. The reason that our founding fathers established such a phenomenal nation, it cannot exist without freedom of the press. It cannot exist with a government that puts into action some kind of ministry of truth. When all the DHS needs to be doing is protecting us from terrorists and drugs and other nefarious groups that are trying to harm our nation. I think we're smart enough to know disinformation from real information. And by the way, it was the Biden administration that was the administrator of disinformation throughout. It was John Brennan, former head of the CIA under Barack Obama. It was James Clapper. It was the FBI that was sold out to Hillary Clinton and everybody else. I mean, it was like they were owned by them. And we know that. Look at what our nation went through. It was about weaponizing agencies that we had trusted. We entrust these agencies with our security, with our lives, with the lives of our children. And these agencies worked against the American people and against the President of the United States. And now we're going to have Nina Jankowicz, some lackey for the Biden administration, heading out this new ministry of disinformation. What a disgrace. What a shame. There should be no tax dollars put towards this. Look, we've been warned throughout history and in science fiction novels like 1984. Brilliant people have warned us about what can happen when you have a disinformation governance board run by a federal government. We better be really scared of that. And I hope when our next president is elected, because, oh boy, I mean, I guarantee it. I mean, well, we can't guarantee it. I'm not, psychic, but I'm given like a 98% chance that Biden will not be reelected in 3 years. And hopefully in November, a new Senate, a new House, that there's going to be an end put to this before it even has a chance to get its tentacles set deep into our crazy bureaucracy. We cannot afford to have that. We cannot afford to have that, folks. And before I get to my next guest, Attorney General Mark Brnovich, with all the inside scoop as to what's happening at the Supreme Court in the fight against lifting and rescinding Title 42. Remember, you can only get that here at the Sara Carter Show. I want to tell you a little bit about a new sponsor we have for our show, one that I absolutely love, one that's been making me feel healthy, and it's Healthy Cell, guys. It's Healthy Cell. It's the next generation of dietary supplements. If you take supplements in pill form now, then it's time to change. I'm telling you, because studies show you don't absorb most of those nutrients that you get in a pill form. And you know what? I don't even like swallowing them. There's just too many of them. Vitamins you can't absorb are a waste of money. That's why doctors and nutritionists created Healthy Cell. It's a great tasting. I'm telling you, it tastes great, like mango, like grape, all kinds of fruit. Ingestible gel. It's an ingestible gel with 165% more absorption than pills. I tried it and I ditched the pills. I love it. I use it all the time. I can carry them in my purse. I can take them when I'm out on the border, and I feel energized. I feel healthy, and I feel great. Trust me, you will too. Healthy Cell is an immune super booster. It's great tasting. It's effective. You can feel it. You can feel it in your own fitness. In fact, Healthy Cell is the strongest immune supplement on the market, bar none. Journey to a better health with Healthy Cell. Go to healthycell.com/Carter. That is healthycell.com/Carter, and use the promo code Carter for 20% off your first order. Again, that's healthycell.com/Carter, promo code Carter for 20% off your first order. I know you have like only a short amount of time, and you've all been so busy saving our country, Attorney General. So thank you for being on the Sara Carter Show.
Absolutely. Thank you, Sarah, for having me on again. And I do feel like I get to see you all the time. I saw you on Sean Hannity's show again. I mean, you are down at the border, bringing so much attention to the crisis and the lawlessness that's going on. So thank you for that. And thank you for having me on again.
Well, thank you for fighting the good fight and for taking it all the way to the Supreme Court, because that is where we are going to win this battle. I'm down at the border. As you said, I was down there for Sean this past week. Terrible tragedy that we lost a National Guardsman. Yes, Specialist Bishop Evans, and is a hero, as his family said. But on that border, you see it. You've seen it yourself. You're from Arizona. You're out there on the border, watching the floodgates being open, watching our nation's national security being threatened, and seeing the humanitarian crisis and the toll that this has taken on our nation. Is this the reason why you got involved in the legal fight to keep Title 42 in place?
Well, Sarah, you and I have discussed this before, but, I'm a first generation American, and we've talked about all the time that, my family fled from communism. And the one thing that who has family members that, not only just study history, but lived it, you have this unique appreciation for how fragile liberty and freedom are. As Ronald Reagan used to remind us, it's never more than one generation away from extinction. And it's not something we pass on to our kids in blood, or our blood. It's something that's got to be fought for. So fundamentally, to me, this border crisis is a crisis catastrophe. It's not a crisis, it's a catastrophe now, is about the rule of law, because it begins and ends there with the rule of law, that we have to have a sane system that recognizes the very reason why people want to come here is because the rule of law means something. And if you have this chaos and disorder and you enable the cartels to seize control, you undermine the very reason for people wanting to come here and why America is such an amazing country. The second thing is, I know as a gang prosecutor, anything that comes across the border, whether it's human beings, whether it's drugs, the cartels are making money off that. And that means they get more and more powerful. And that means more and more people, kids, nieces, nephews, sons, daughters, are going to die as a result of these failed policies. And we see that in these terrible statistics. And then we also know that it's going to lead to more violence in our communities. And then we also know that the Biden administration literally is releasing people either charged or convicted of serious crimes into our neighborhood because they're refusing to deport them. So you have all of these factors coming into play where they're undermining the rule of law, and at the same time, they're making our country less safe, and they're having taxpayers subsidize it. So it's crazy. It's unfathomable. I keep losing, or I run out of adjectives to describe what they're doing.
I do too.
I'm sorry, I feel like I'm filibustering. Yes.
No, you're not filibustering. I feel exactly, I'm listening to you, and I feel the same way. While you were talking, I just kept thinking, a perfect storm, a perfect storm. This is a perfect storm leading to probably one of the greatest national security crises that the United States will ever see, because we have no idea, Attorney General, who's in our country. We have no clue.
Well, we do know, and you know this, Sarah, the people on the terror watch list have been apprehended. We know when you go down to, the border, there is literally currency and, even newspapers from, countries like Yemen and Saudi Arabia and other Middle Eastern countries that are even on the terror watch list. And so border security is national security, not only because of the cartels, but because we don't know who's coming to this country. And, we started talking about Title 42, and our office led the charge, and we got a temporary restraining order to stop the Biden administration from rescinding Title 42, because we know that's going to lead to another flood of people entering the country illegally. But just now, we filed a lawsuit against the Biden administration's attempt to allow DHS now to grant asylum claims. And so this is like the 1-2 punch, where the Biden administration is encouraging all these people to illegally enter the country. And now they want to give DHS, instead of a federal immigration judge, they want to give DHS the authority to unilaterally grant asylum. And so this, I think, is not only going to encourage more illegal immigration, but it's essentially going to grant amnesty for people that are breaking the law and that have entered the country illegally.
Well, it'll let everybody, because everybody can claim credible fear, right? And it doesn't mean that we should accept everyone with credible fear. But I spoke to immigration and customs enforcement officers. I've been talking about this for years, but I spoke to some recently, and they're saying, look, we're not returning hardly anyone back. I mean, we're not sending people back at all. All they have to do is claim credible fear. And now it looks like the DHS is going to have that authority, full authority, if they're allowed to do it, unless you stop them. And it means everybody who's coming across that border is going to give an excuse, a loophole to stay. And once they claim credible fear, all they're given is that, notice to appear. And they never appear. The majority of them never appear. Am I right or am I wrong?
Yeah, it is crazy, because we know in the Biden proposed budget that literally there's more than $100 million for legal aid to migrants that have illegally entered the country. And what the system is now is that if you have that credible fear, you have to go before a federal immigration judge, and that person is independent and they make the determination. And in about 85% of the cases, those claims are denied. So it's denied a vast majority of the time. But now with what Biden is proposing, and I think this is so radical, like this is something everyone should be talking about. It literally grants or they want to give DHS the authority now, not an independent agency, but bureaucrats beholden to the Biden administration and beholden to Secretary Mayorkas, the authority and the power to unilaterally by themselves grant asylum. And if they denied it, they still get to go before the immigration judge. So they're going to get 2 bites at the apple. And it is absolutely crazy, because it's not only inconsistent with the law, but it's definitely going to encourage more and more people, to come up here, because they think the Biden administration is essentially, granting amnesty, which if I don't stop them, that's what they'll be doing.
Well, that's essentially what they're doing. That's essentially the message that is being transmitted across the globe, not just in Central America, not just in Mexico, not just in South America, but across the globe. Like you said, in places like Yemen, in places like Afghanistan. I was just talking to some friends of mine who are down in Panama right now at the Darien Gap, and they sent me a photograph of about 12 men from Afghanistan that made their way through the jungle on their way to the United States. There were people behind them from Somalia, people behind them from China. We got people from all over the world making their way up here, and we don't even know who many of these people are, because they do not have functioning governments. How can we check with the Taliban if these 12 men weren't ever arrested or detained before for anything, when the government itself is a terrorist organization? I wanted to ask you this, Mark, really quickly about what happened in the courtroom. Because, the judge obviously supported your argument. You brought a very strong argument to the court. Tell me what happened. How did that play out, just for our listeners?
Yeah, so Title 42, I think everyone knows, was a policy that the Trump administration implemented that basically allowed force people to be ejected or rejected or returned to Mexico because of concerns about COVID and public health. And so the Biden administration wanted to lift that, and everyone recognized that there was predictions from Biden's own DHS that it would lead to about 18,000 people trying to come over the border illegally every single day. Essentially one of those, full basketball arena or full concert arena every single day. And so even the Democrats started realizing it was a problem, but they weren't doing anything about it. So me and my colleagues, we filed a lawsuit. And a federal judge said, yeah, the Biden administration is not following the law when it comes to rescinding this. And they have to have hearings. They have to have inputs from the states before they can do anything. So a temporary restraining order basically means the judge thinks that we're right legally, and he wants the Biden administration to stop doing any possible further harm. And so we know that the Biden administration was backdoor trying to already rescind this. And so we were able to stop that. And then our next hearing date will be on May 13th. And so we'll have another hearing before this federal judge. And at that time, we'll get a little more clarity as to how long we are able to put the brakes on the Biden administration.
Well,
but
go ahead.
No, I was going to say, make no mistake about it. Once again, this is just, Title 42 was only one tool in the toolbox. The Biden administration, with permanent guidance, temporary guidance, failure to build the wall, the case I argued at the U.S. Supreme Court in February where they're trying to give government benefits to non-citizens. So there's been a whole system and series of acts the Biden administration has done to incentivize and decriminalize legal immigration. And Title 42 is just one more tool. So we're trying to do everything we can to stop this. Try to halt it for as long as possible, to make sure to stop the lawlessness. But the Biden administration every day seems to have some new policy or rule, just like the one we sued them over of these asylum, trying to allow DHS to grant asylum. Every day there's something new that's radically undermining the rule of law and essentially, sending out a signal, not only that the border is open, but essentially they're abolishing, ICE.
So what can we do? I mean, what happens now? How long can you hold them off? What are the next steps? Because I know you're doing everything so that they can't rescind this and they can't do it right now. But could they do it like a year from now? Could they try to push? What other processes can benefit the Biden administration through the courts if we can't keep them from rescinding this? Or is this a big win and it's going to stick?
Well, I don't know. I learned a long time ago, even being married to a federal judge, not to ever try to predict what any federal judge is going to do. But I worry that the Biden administration and the far left and whoever's speaking in Joe Biden's earpiece are very organized and they're very methodical. And it just seems like every day, whether it's, the carbon rules, whether it's these, COVID relief bills that are, spending money that we don't have that's dramatically impacting inflation, whether it's canceling pipeline projects. I mean, from, the gas pump to the grocery store to the empowerment of gangs now, the Biden administration is radically altering this country. And so the tools that I have and some of my colleagues that have joined me is to fight in the courtroom. And we're trying to make sure that we get federal judges to say, stop, you can't do that. That's a violation of law. But, ultimately, shame on Congress. It's Congress is already a dangerous place where the Democrats control Congress. But when you throw in a hard left president and a hard left administration, it's catastrophic, and we're paying the price for it. So, Congress needs to step up and do its job, and whether that's, having hearings, cutting off fundings for these agencies. And, frankly, why isn't anyone talking about, or not more people talking about impeaching Mayorkas? If anyone else failed in their job that miserably, and we know Americans are dying, we know America is a more dangerous place, why aren't we having impeachment proceedings on Mayorkas instead of those people inviting him to Congress to, do a dog and pony show?
I totally agree. And I'm hearing it from everybody. I've been talking to people, former senior officials of DHS that were under Trump and others who have contacted me, who have said Mayorkas should be removed immediately. There should be an investigation because they know he's lied before Congress. These are telling lies that he is statements that he is giving to Congress right now. And I also wonder, too, why is it so difficult? And I can understand that, but because it's so radically left, this administration, you would think people within these agencies would just come out and just say, no more. I'm going to come out. I'm going to give you the information, Mark Brnovich. I'm going to tell the American people what's going on. I'm going to resign because I will not allow the men and women of the Border Patrol to continue to play this dog and pony show. Is it just so difficult right now? Is our bureaucracy are they so sold out that it's impossible to fight it because people are scared for their own jobs, scared for themselves?
I think it's all of the above in some ways, Sarah, because I do know that in our lawsuit that we had against the temporary and then the permanent guidance of the Biden administration, where they were failing to deport people, deportation orders. The interim / acting director here admitted, under oath, and we saw emails where they were saying that this is dangerous, that this is going to that literally means criminals are going to be released into our community. So, when they're under oath, sometimes they, will tell the truth and they'll admit it. But I think part of this sadly, is that you have had this, some people call it the swamp, some people call it the bureaucratic class, some people call it, the apparatchik class, whatever you want to call it. There is this permanent bureaucracy, these apparatchiks that develop in the agencies, and they just stay there, and they seem to only care about themselves and their jobs versus, caring about the hardworking American people. And I also think part of it is that, they when you get these Democratic administrations in place, they hire Democratic or left-leaning people, and then they put them in career positions where then that way, when you have a change in administrations, you can't do anything. And I mean, I've heard this frustration from folks, whether it's at Defense, whether it's at the State Department, or, some of these other agencies where, you have these kind of mid-level and even upper-level people that are very, very political, that were appointed there by, previous Democratic administrations or the current Democratic administration. And then even when a Republican, becomes or gets elected, those people don't change. And they literally work to subvert the efforts of whatever the Republican wants to do. And then every time there's a Democrat in, they radically accelerate that kind of leftward leaning or leftward lurch of those agencies.
Yeah, well, we certainly saw that during the Trump administration, and it was extraordinarily frustrating. And the swamp was so thick. And I think that was the first time, and I was saying this earlier in the opening monologue of the podcast, it was one of the big realizations that Trump left us with, even though he's out of office. The American people woke up. They actually saw what was happening inside these bureaucracies and how these bureaucracies had been weaponized down to the point that it's endangering our national security. I want to talk quickly because I don't want to let you go without asking about the Senate race. And you are working diligently, I know that, for the great state of Arizona. And there's 3 months, we're 3 months out from the primary. And where do you think you stand in the Republican race right now? I know a lot of people are very excited about this.
Well, I appreciate that. And at the end of the day, Sarah, I'm in a good position just because I'm a public school kid that grew up here in Arizona. I understand the states. I have been involved in all these battles as the Attorney General. I'd never run for office before I was AG, but I was a gang prosecutor. I worked at a free market think tank called the Goldwater Institute. So I have always been about limited government, maximizing individual liberty, protecting our communities. And, so when I ran for AG, I said that I'm going to push back against the overreach of the federal government to protect our rights. And so whether it was leading, the efforts on protecting our Second Amendment rights at the Supreme Court, whether it's been leading the charge multiple times of holding the Obama and the Biden administration accountable over their failed border policies, whether it's being engaged in protecting life. I mean, I am the real deal, and I think Arizona voters appreciate that I'm a fighter. I mean, as or some of our mutual friends, even like Sean Hannity that's supporting me, he talks about the fact that I am a fighter, that I'm engaged in battles. While other people are talking, I am doing. And I think the people in Arizona appreciate that I've always been a straight shooter, and I always tell people that I want to go to Washington, D.C. to not make government more efficient, but I want to make it smaller. And I think as Barry Goldwater used to always say, that any government that's big enough to give you everything is big enough to take it away. And because of my own family's background, I think that we need to do everything we can to reduce the size and scope of the federal government in our daily lives. And we see the consequences of a big bloated federal government, and whether it's at our public schools, whether it's the inefficiencies that's happening with our economy and what they've done with gas prices, all that is a consequence of an overbearing and an overreaching federal government. And it's time that we have people in Washington that are like me, that are first generation Americans, public school kids, and the sad thing is, Sarah, when I get to the Senate, I think I'll be one of the poorest people there, and I'm a middle class kid. I'm not, complaining about that. I'm just saying that we need people with real life, real world experiences that represent Arizona values, that represent American values in the Senate. And I think that's why I'm in a good position, and that's why I'm going to win the primary, and then I'm going to beat the astronaut.
You're going to beat the astronaut. I should have asked you about Mark Kelly, because it does seem like Mark Kelly kind of, the first time he's actually come out and just opposed anything that the Biden administration has done has been with Title 42. But I think it's because of his constituents, right? I mean, Mark Kelly's really seeing like he's really feeling the heat there.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, the reality is he's voting with Chuck Schumer nearly 100% of the time. You know, he's voted for policies that have dramatically increased inflation, dramatically increased the size and scope of the federal government. You know, he's tried to undermine our Second Amendment rights and liberties. And of course, he has done absolutely nothing to solve the border crisis problem. In fact, I've said this before. When I'm in the U.S. Senate, if we have Arizonans dying, like we do right now, in places like Pima County, where the number one cause of death now is drug, opioid, fentanyl overdoses, replacing even car accidents, if people are dying, you can't have a senator representing this state or any other state voting for Supreme Court nominees or cabinet officials or any big bloated government bills until we secure our border. That's got to be the number one priority. And he's been AWOL on that. And I'll just say just one really quick anecdote. I was up in Prescott just recently, and Yavapai County is a great place here in northern Arizona. And I was walking, and a couple construction guys were working, and they yelled at me. And I was like, I didn't know what they were saying. I kind of stopped. They're like, beard, beard. You never know what they're gonna say after they yell you beard. So I paused to talk to them, and they're like, beard, you need to go beat the spaceman. And then they were all kind of joking, like, it's the beard versus the spaceman. And I thought, well, that's pretty cool. That's a good preview for November of this year. So
the beard versus the spaceman. I love that. I love that. I'm going to give you an opportunity right now to respond, because I love the way you take the fight. Always, you take it to the courts. You've always been willing to stand up, talk about the border issues, stand up to the Biden administration. You've always been a man of your word on that. And you've always come on the show, and you've always shown that you're willing to take the fight to the biggest and the worst of them. And that I admire you for. I did see that statement from Trump a couple of weeks ago, and I'm going to give you a chance to respond to that about criticizing you for not doing enough. During the 2020 elections. What's your reaction to his statement there? I'm giving you a chance to just address that. And is there any comment that you'd like to make? Do you have any comment you want to say to him?
Look, I think a lot of people are very frustrated with not only how the 2020 election was handled and conducted, but how long sometimes investigations take. But I mean, you think about something like the Russia collusion hoax. We knew right away that was BS, but it literally took 4 years to get to the bottom of it. And I think that the left has had years to perfect their techniques, and sometimes getting to the bottom, that takes time. And I've always told people, whether it's President Trump or whether it's anyone else, that when you're the government, you have the ability to take away people's livelihoods, their life, liberty, property. And with that comes an awesome responsibility. And I'm not like the clowns in New York, the prosecutors there. I'm not going to throw stuff against the wall and see what sticks. It's important to get it right versus fast. And the reality is that we've issued an interim report that points out that, for example, 20% of the ballots here in Maricopa County didn't have a proper chain of custody. And, so there are significant issues when it came to verification of signatures. I mean, they were doing that in less than 10 seconds for the mail-in ballots. And I remind folks all the time that I literally argued the most important election case in a generation called Brnovich v. DNC. And it's named after me because when no other officials are willing to step up during that 2020 cycle, I did. And I literally defended the ability of the states to enact common sense election integrity measures, like limitations on ballot harvesting, limitations on out-of-precinct voting. And as a result of that win, and I personally argued that case, you saw states like Georgia and Florida and other places enact common sense election integrity measures. And so, once again, I know sometimes, as a prosecutor, you're limited what you can say and what you can comment on legally and ethically. I've had people, file bar complaints against me, like when I sued the university over their tuition prices. The Secretary of State here, when we were involved in litigation against her, they file bar complaints. And so when you're the government, you're not only held to a higher standard, when you're a prosecutor, you are limited what you can say when an investigation is ongoing. So I can just assure people that if you look at my track record, I have been a fighter, I have been a brawler, but it's important to do the right thing in the right way. And sometimes some people get frustrated. I appreciate and I understand that. But at the end of the day, we know there's an old saying, just win, baby. And that's what we're doing, whether it's at the U.S. Supreme Court, whether it's stopping the Biden administration's lawlessness. We have a track record of actually getting the right result when other people are just out there chirping. And I would just remind folks, there's a lot of folks out there chirping, even in my race. Like, where were they? When I was in the federal court fighting the Biden administration's unconstitutional vaccine mandate, where were they? When I was at the U.S. Supreme Court arguing Brnovich v. DNC, where were they? I mean, so there's a lot of like fair weather or sunshine patriots, that come out of the woodwork now when they're trying to buy a Senate seat. But my goodness, where have they been when I was taking on not only the Biden administration, but the Obama administration?
I agree with you on that. I mean, I know because I'm watching what's happening now with the Durham investigation and how many years it's taken since the very first time I wrote a story in 2016, where we began to expose what was happening to President Trump and under the administration by weaponizing all of these different agencies. You did talk about chirping. I have two more good questions. Two more good questions for you. One is the reaction to Elon Musk buying Twitter. The chirping brought me back. And I got to get your reaction here, because I think there are legal issues, not with Elon Musk, but with what the government is doing now with the creation now of this crazy disinformation governance board under DHS. So first, your feelings on Elon Musk. Second, how do you feel about the DHS creating a whole new bureaucracy to basically monitor our communications?
For first thing with Elon Musk, I will give you a quick anecdote. I remember when Barry Goldwater was still alive, after he was out of the U.S. Senate, I had an opportunity to talk to him, and I'd asked him, I said, well, do you like read, or do you know like all these bills? Like, how in depth do you get on those? And he said, well, I look over at Hubert Humphrey, and if he's for it, then I know I'm against it. And so when I heard like the left heads have exploded as a result of what Elon Musk did. So it must be a good thing, the fact that like CNN and all these other commentators are saying how terrible it is. And I think at the end of the day, it's important to have as many vehicles, that we can when it comes to speech. And we know that, there's the Mark Zuckerbergs of the world, and these people spent hundreds of millions of dollars, tens of millions of dollars last election cycle, giving it to, Democratic election officials. And, even though it was under the guise of, voter turnout, we know that there was a, attempt kind of to maybe influence it in one way or the other.
Oh, let's just be straight. One quick interruption here, because I want you to go on with that. But one quick interruption. You're absolutely right. They stopped the Hunter Biden story. And they said it was disinformation. And they even had government officials sign on to a document, senior government officials, former CIA, even Michael Hayden, who was a Republican CIA director, and others sign on saying it was disinformation. And now all of a sudden the New York Times comes out and it's like, hey, wait a minute, Hunter Biden laptop story, totally true. It's like, well, that was a bit of disinformation if you want to talk about it before an election.
Yeah, and the thing is, sometimes it's blatant and obvious like that, but other times it's less obvious and subtle. And I was the first AG to sue Google. We have a lawsuit right now in state court. And one of the things that we know about the tech companies, it's not just, stopping those stories or, having people do, like manipulate the story, but it's also their ability to throttle stories and to make sure you get certain stories in your feed or not get stories, and how they manipulate you. And the sad part is that a lot of times folks don't even realize they're being manipulated, and they think like, hey, I don't believe the mainstream media and everything else. But you mentioned some of those government officials, CIA officials, and Hayden and everybody else. They do go on mainstream media, though. They say that, they repeat it, and then the media, and then that becomes a narrative. And then all of a sudden, then they, we saw this even during COVID, where they would throttle or they would stop any sort of contrary points of view. And so eventually people do get manipulated, whether they realize it or not. And, because if, a bunch of other people believe it, then, sometimes people start believing that, well, it must be true. And so it is troubling. And this, just kind of wrapping up, even going to the DHS, what you're talking about, is that this is what happens. And I know you know this because you and I have talked about our family backgrounds. This is what happens in communist countries or totalitarian countries, where you have to toe the party line. And what they do is they start, anybody that doesn't do that media-wise or speaks out against it ends up losing their job, or worse, sometimes even imprisoned, because you become dependent on that central authority. And then we also know then you have these ministers of propaganda and these other folks that really are doing things to, basically feed the party line. And when you have this permanent bureaucratic or apparatchik class in Washington, D.C., you know that they're going to lean left and continue to lean left regardless of the administration. So I think it's a very dangerous thing anytime the government whether it's DHS or Homeland Security or the CIA or anything else, tries to consciously or intentionally provide information or manipulate anyone in America. That is a very dangerous step on the road to tyranny.
Can we do something legally about this? Because, and I don't want to get into a whole other debate about, I'm gonna have to bring you on just to talk about this separately, but think about it. The CIA's job is to function outside of the United States. It's not legal to operate in the United States. They can't manipulate information. They can't run a disinformation campaign inside the United States. And in fact, to run an information campaign in another nation, it's considered lethal. You need the authority of the president of the United States to sign off on any kind of operation, whether that be Iraq, Costa Rica, Venezuela. I mean, because you could get people killed. You could literally get people killed with disinformation. So how is this possible? And are there legal ramifications for this? I don't know.
Well, we're looking, obviously, it seems like every week we have another lawsuit against the Biden administration. So we are looking at that. We're looking at what our possible legal options are. And, once again, where's Congress? Where are the Republicans in Congress? Or even the Democrats saying, no, we're not going to fund this. You can't do this. I mean, and people that know history, in the 1960s, in the 1970s, you had, the federal government, the FBI, the CIA, basically doing domestic surveillance, spying, infiltrating, groups.
Great church, the church hearings.
I was just going to mention the church hearings, and the left came unglued because they're like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. So it's, where are all the civil libertarians? Where are all, the lefty principled Democrats saying, oh my gosh, this is terrible. We can't allow this to happen. This should be an issue where it's not left versus right, it's right versus wrong. And we need everyone, regardless of what your political outpoint, to say, this is crazy, this is unconscionable. And for the Democrats out there, do they want, President Trump or anyone else, the next Republican out there, having this kind of authority, this kind of precedent, and they can do that with other agencies as well? So it is really a dangerous precedent, and we should be doing everything we can to stop it.
Thank you so much, Attorney General. That's why you're a fighter. That's why I love having you on the show. And you're exactly right. I was listening to Elon Musk and hearing, looking at his tweets, and that's what he's saying too. I think that's what any of us want, is a place where we can have an open forum to do exactly what our forefathers established under the Constitution. We could debate ideas, right? Where we don't have a government interfering in our lives and telling us what to do, or creating some sort of memory hole where they're going to change history or, change who we are, like the Chinese Communist Party or, the former Stalin government and even Vladimir Putin today. You're the best. Thank you. I'm going to be following every single one of your cases. I'm telling you. And the next time you're on the border, I want to be out there with you.
I think I know because we text each other. I was down there, I think, 2 weeks ago. We didn't even get into what's going on with the dramatic increase in high-speed pursuits. And
that's right. In Yuma, the crime.
I know.
Is that what you're going to do when you're a senator, right? That's what you're going to try to do to change or to bring back some normalcy to Arizona? I
hope so. And I think the key, though, is that, when it comes to national security and border security, that is actually the federal government's at the apex of the power. Those are the issues the federal government should be focusing on, not trying to micromanage our schools or not shutting off, our independent energy policies, not trying to micromanage the economy and socialize it. So there are things clearly that the U.S. Senate should be focusing on, and that's border security and national security, and not trying to micromanage our kids or our schools.
Well, I look to having you back on, and thank you so much for everything. Thank you for being on today. Thank you.
Thanks again, Sarah.
I tell you, that's the reason why I bring Attorney General Mark Brnovich on the show. Here's a man who's fighting the fight. He believes in what he says. He's not just out here giving lip service. He's actually doing what he says he's going to do. And those are the kind of people we want on the show, because I know those are the kind of people you want to listen to. Folks, before I get to the end of the show, I've got so much to tell you about in the opinion section, but I want to talk to you first about MyPillow. MyPillow is awesome. I love them. I love Mike Lindell. He's now back on Twitter. Thank you, Elon Musk. Mike Lindell is now back on Twitter. But guess what? We have other ways of supporting a great patriot. And by the way, taking care of ourselves. And that's getting a MyPillow, right? MyPillow products made in America. And nothing beats the luxurious feel of their towels, guys. I have them. I give them to my kids. I have them in my family. I love the white ones. I can just wash them and reuse them. The towels are regularly $109.99. And now you can get the full towel set for $39.99. You just can't beat that. My Pillow 6-piece towel set. It's made with cotton grown in the US. Other towels feel good but don't absorb, or they absorb but they don't feel as good, right? Every My Pillow towel is made from proprietary technology that makes them highly absorbable and soft to the touch. I'm telling you, every set comes with 2 bath towels, 2 hand towels, and 2 washcloths. And for a limited time, get the My Pillow 6-piece towel set regularly $109.99 for only $39.99. You cannot beat that, folks. $39.99 with promo code Carter, and you're helping a great patriot and a good friend of mine, Mike Lindell. Visit mypillow.com/Carter or call 1-800-685-7221. You'll also find deep discounts on all My Pillow products, including the My Pillow mattress topper, My Pillow Giza Dream Sheets, and so much more, like the My Pillow doggy pillows. Get your 6-piece My Pillow towel set for only $39.99 today at mypillow.com/Carter or call 1-800-685-7221. mypillow.com/Carter. Hey guys, despite the Biden administration's doing its best to restart the Iran nuclear deal, guess what? It appears to be collapsing. There is a God. There is a God. And the Jerusalem Post has a great story on this. And I told you I was going to bring this up in my opinion because I can't close the show out without telling you about this. The nuclear deal is highly unlikely. And the U.S. is now looking for alternatives to Iran. And I'm telling you, it's because what happened during the Trump administration was phenomenal. And I don't think people are thinking about it enough, like thinking about what Trump did, right? And history will show this. Even though he served just that one term and he may run again and he may serve again, he made such significant changes. He opened our eyes to what was happening in the government, and he implemented policies with I'm telling you, there were great people working around him. Jared Kushner deserves a lot of credit on this. Stephen Miller does too. But there was a lot of moving forward when it came to the Iran deal. And now the Biden administration and the old Obamaites and Obama himself, former President Obama, can't find their way back. Here's what the story says. National Security Advisor, and this is in the Jerusalem Post, so this is the National Security Advisor, Eyal Hulata, met with his American counterpart, Jake Sullivan, we all know about him, in Washington this week, to discuss alternative ways to stop Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon in the event, which Jerusalem views as likely that the Iran deal is not revived. Sullivan emphasized that the United States is attuned to Israel's concerns about threats to its security, including first and foremost from Iran and Iranian-backed proxies. Look, we've known this from the beginning. The IRGC in Iran is a terrorist organization, and Biden's plan to remove them from a foreign terrorist list organization was unbelievable to me. And to so many other people who thought that was one of the best things that had been done. And by the way, the killing of General Soleimani as well. Which the Iranian government still wants to retaliate for. It doesn't look like this Iran deal is going to happen. And it's not going to happen because we're going to put the pressure on the government. And Israel's going to put pressure on the government as well. And that is the American government, the Biden administration, to ensure that it doesn't happen. Guess what, President Obama? It looks more and more likely that the JCPOA is not going to happen. Your legacy is not going to happen. It was a joke from the beginning. You should have found another legacy to rely on, and it's not going to happen. And that's thankfully for the whole world. This doesn't just deal with Israel. This deals with the entire world. Iran should not have nuclear weapons, and it should not be able to expand into the Fertile Crescent. When the people you're negotiating with refuse to promise not to kill you, maybe you shouldn't make a deal with them. Guys, thank you so much for joining the Sara Carter Show. It's been so great having you with me again. I feel like I learned something. Attorney General Mark Brnovich, always welcome on this show. Always welcome to fill us in on the latest details and take us behind the scenes in one of the most important parts of our government, the Supreme Court, and the fight to protect our nation. I look forward to seeing him run for Senate and seeing what happens this year as well in November midterms. Guys, remember you can follow me, get all my links at saracarter.com. That is saracarter.com. And while you're there, sign up for my email list. God bless you, God bless our great nation, and God bless the great state of Texas.
Hey guys, we know it's hard to keep up with all the news these days, but don't worry, because we're here to talk and laugh about it all. Elon Musk is the king of Twitter after buying the entire company. CNN Plus has failed after just 3 weeks, and Biden is still doing his creepy whisper at press events. Hey, it's the Chicks here from the Chicks on the Right podcast. Download and subscribe to our daily podcast to hear us pick apart and pick on the news of the day. Politics to pop culture, nobody's safe, but it's all fun. Subscribe on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts.